y'all, it's Siobhan Muir. Welcome back to Cooking with Siobhan. So today we are going to make kind of a, well, it's almost like a custard fruit cake, right? It's layers, so there's custard on top of fruit, which is on top of cake. So it's one of these, it's from my grandmother's cookbook, Sharing Our Best, and it is, it's called fruit Kuchen. Now, that's very German. It's basically, like I said, a custard fruit cake. And you'll see what I mean. And these recipes are so fun because they'll say, fresh fruit. Yes, how much? Oh, you know, enough. So, what we're doing, we're not doing fresh because it's the middle of winter and fresh fruit is harder to come by and it's very, very expensive. So we're gonna do some frozen fruit. We're gonna do berries. So we're gonna do blueberry, blackberry, and raspberry. And it's a kind of a mixture and we're gonna throw it on top and we're gonna hope. Here's what you do. You need 2 cups of flour, a half a cup of butter, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons plus 1 cup of sugar. Now, that's a lot of sugar when you think about what you're actually doing. So what I've decided is we have a full cup of sugar here. We're gonna take 2 tablespoons out and for the recipe, for the crust, the cake. And then I'm not gonna use all the rest of it for the rest of it. I'm actually gonna probably just do a half a cup of sugar. It'll make sense when we get to it, but for now, it originally said a cup of sugar plus 2 tablespoons, and I'm like, yeah, 1 cup should be enough. And then I found out what they're using it for, and I'm like, no, we're doing less than that. So, then you're going to need the fresh fruit, and again, it doesn't tell you how much. 2 eggs, half a pint of cream. Oh my glory. So it turns out a pint of cream is 2 cups of cream. So if you want a half a pint, that's 1 cup of cream. Oh, glory. So you only need a cup of cream is what you're going to need. And then a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of vanilla. Trust me, the vanilla will make things better. What do you start with? It says, mix flour, butter, salt, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. So basically you're making the cake crust. So what I did is I melted my butter so it just makes it easier. So we'll put the butter in. And then we will mix in the 2 cups of flour. 2 cups of flour. I'm using salted butter, so you might get away with not using any salt in the crust. So I think what we'll do is we'll not do the salt, and then 2 tablespoons of sugar. And since I have all the sugar right here, I'm just going to take 1 and 2. Now, because I'm using salted butter, you probably don't need to add the salt, so I'm not going to. However, in the rest of it, you might want to add a pinch of salt. It brings out the sweetness and really elevates the dessert. So, but for the crust part, I would leave out the salt. I am going to stir this with a wooden spoon, and you're supposed to mix this together, and then you're going to press it into the pan. It did not say to grease the pan, but I think the butter might make it easy to come out. And I'm using a pottery pan rather than a metal one. If you are using metal, you might want to grease the pan. So this will eventually become a crust. So it's going to be kind of crumbly, which is kind of what you're making. Like I said, it's going to be more of almost a shortbread crust at the bottom. So once you have everything pretty well mixed, again, it's very crumbly, you want to press it into the bottom of your pan. And this is, like I said, where you're going to make kind of a crust for the rest of the dish that's coming. Now, I would make sure your hands are clean. I would use your hands to press this into the pan, right? So you're going to get a decent thick crust and cake, which is going to hold your fruit. Okay, on to that. Cover with any fresh fruit. Now, we're using frozen, so this might be a little more liquidy than we're usual, but the good news is because it's gluten-free, the flour is drier. If you don't want your fingers to be dyed, use a spoon. No one's gonna fault you for it. And I would take spoonfuls and cover. Make sure you cover all of the crust, because you kind of want the flavoring like everywhere. Again, the recipe didn't call for a specific amount, so my suggestion is make sure your entire crust is covered with fruit. That's the suggestion, and I'm sure that's what she meant too. Make sure you have a decent layer on your cake. Ta-da! If I had to measure this, I'd say it's at most 2.5 to 3 cups. At most. Might not even be that much. 2.5 to 3 cups is what I would guesstimate this is. Now is when things come kind of interesting. So the next thing you're supposed to do is sprinkle the remaining sugar and cinnamon onto the fruit. Here's where I think what I would do is I'd get myself a bowl. I'd do a half a cup of sugar, all right? Because that's an awful lot of sugar to add to your fruit, all right? So I do that. I would also add the cinnamon to your sugar here, and it says half a teaspoon of cinnamon, so I'd add that to that. Okay, and then I would mix those two together so you get cinnamon sugar. I would also add a half teaspoon of vanilla. Add it to that. And then I'd okay, so this is what you're going to, they say sprinkle over the top. And like I said, if you had a whole cup of sugar, that would be an awful lot of sugar, especially because berries in general are very, very sweet, or at least sweeter than, say, like if you were doing, I don't know, grapefruit. Right, okay. So then it says, with this, bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 204 degrees Celsius, I think. My cameraman will check that and verify. I think it's 204. But you bake that for 15 minutes. While we're doing that, we are going to mix the eggs and cream. So what we're going to do while we're waiting for the oven to heat up, you're going to bake this for only about 15 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius. So while that's heating up, I'm gonna start making the cream. The cream goes over the top of it. Now, again, what you have is 2 eggs, 1 cup of cream, and a half teaspoon of cinnamon. Interesting, I put the cinnamon on that. But that's all right. What I'm gonna do is instead of a half teaspoon of cinnamon, I'm gonna do a half teaspoon of vanilla in the cream as well. And a half tablespoon of sugar. Not because I want it overly sweet, but I don't really like eggy cream without anything in it. The cinnamon is now with the fruit, so we're not going to worry about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in 2 eggs, and a half teaspoon of vanilla. All right. Now, I know you saw some white stuff. This is what we had sugar in before, so it's just sugar dust. So don't worry about too much. If it flavors it, great. Not a big deal. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is then I'm gonna mix these really well until they're kind of fluffy. It doesn't say how long, it just says mix, so. Okay, they're pretty fluffy. To that, I'm going to add a half tablespoon of sugar. And then to that, I'm going to add the single cup of cream. Or, you know, a half pint. Some of these old recipes, use a half a pint of cream. Or, you know, 1 cup. You're going to mix this thoroughly, but you don't want to make whipping cream. Okay, so you want to mix it up so everything's combined, but you're trying to make more of a custard than a heavy, thick whipping cream, because you're gonna end up baking this for about a half an hour. Okay, like I said, we are not trying to make whipping cream. So we're just gonna combine everything. Like I said, if you would rather not put the cinnamon in the sugar, you'd rather put it in the cream, you can do that. Instead of cinnamon, I put in vanilla. So we have vanilla cream on top of cinnamon sugar coating on the fruit, and then, you know, so it won't turn out badly. You won't be disappointed. So now all we have to do is kind of wait for this to heat up, bake it for 15 minutes, and then add the cream on top. You can make the cream at any time. You could wait until the 15 minutes are over. And you're supposed to pour it over when the dish is still hot. So honestly, you could do this anytime. I was just like, well, since we're waiting, I might as well just do it. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but what we'll do is we'll be back to show you what it looks like when it comes out. I'm going to throw it in the oven and bake it for 15 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius, and then I will bring it out and show you what it looks like. Okay, so what you're supposed to do now is it says mix the cream and then pour over the fruit and bake for another 30 minutes. I'm going to pour this over that. You're supposed to leave your oven at the 400 degrees or 204, and you know what, put this back in there. Now you're going to bake it for another 30 minutes to harden the cream. Just make sure it's everywhere. All right, we'll pull it out in 30 minutes. All right, the timer just went off. It says nothing, meaning it doesn't say let it cool and serve, you know. It doesn't say let it cool for 5 minutes, add into a bowl. It does smell good, however. And it looks kind of good. Like I said, it says nothing. It says pour over, bake, and call it good. These old recipes are really fun this way. It didn't even say to grease the pan. It doesn't say refrigerate, but I would. Once it cools down, I would put it in the fridge for keeping so that people can eat it and enjoy it. Putting it in the fridge might actually make the cream solidify a little bit, the cream and eggs and stuff. Yeah, I like it. It's really going to be subtly flavored. I wouldn't make it sweeter, but it is kind of more of a European sort of dessert rather than an American. Americans tend to make their stuff really sweet and really in your face, okay? This is a really subtle flavor, and I prefer European cooking. It's actually pretty good. And bonus, it's gluten-free. It is an unusual one, and it's not bad. I don't think I'd even do anything different. I changed the recipe. I wrote down what I had done. And I will share the recipe that I made rather than what was originally written. But yeah, I think it's actually a pretty good, but it's more subtly flavored than in your face. Well, thank you for joining us, and definitely sign up for the, ring the bell to find out when there's new videos. Subscribe to the channel. Comment and like on this video, comment and like on other videos. Let me know if you did anything different. Did you make it as it was, or did you add some different flavors in it? Which I think you could get away with, actually. Yeah, and definitely sign up for my Patreon, because not only do you get these cooking videos, but you also get some of the extras like cover reveals and a story that I'm not publishing anywhere else, and all sorts of things that I put out, including, I haven't done any yet, but there might be some not safe for work images that you might get to see. Anyway, so thank you for joining me. Happy making, happy baking, happy eating, and happy reading. Bye.